and welcome to Farm to Home. We're so glad to have Thomas McDowell with Rocky Mount Medical Park Pharmacy with us today again. Welcome.
Thanks, Sandra. Glad to be here.
And you're here just in the nick of time.
Yeah, we're about at the end of the line on Medicare.
Isn't it
open
the
enrollment.
7th?
Mm-hmm.
Okay.
So December 7th, so October 15th through December 7th. I don't know how we're already in December, but
I don't either.
here we are. It certainly feels like December out there today, and so we're in that period where if you are a Medicare beneficiary, this is your opportunity. For most patients, one of the only opportunities in the year to look at your different Medicare plan options and switch to a different plan if you
Yes.
wish. We do a large number of Medicare consultations through our pharmacies, and then also we really kind of hone in on the medication specifically and how we can help folks afford their medications. And we've talked about a lot of the changes in Medicare, especially in Medicare D, around the prescription medications. The capped max out-of-pocket, $2,000 on the drugs for the year, the elimination of the donut hole, or the coverage gap where copays would typically spike for patients, usually later in the year, depends on what medications you take. But these rules really are going to benefit mainly patients that are taking brand medications, the more expensive medications. If you're on cheap generics, unfortunately, this is not really going to benefit you a whole lot, but there's always the potential that you'll be on a brand medication in the future. And so those are exciting changes. And so wanted to touch on one topic that always is a hot topic around Medicare time, and we see a lot of discussion about it on social media and just in the pharmacy, and that's Medicare Advantage. About 58% of the United States Medicare population have Medicare Advantage.
Really?
Mm-hmm.
I didn't know the numbers were that high.
That's up from, I believe, back in 2015, it was around 39-40%.
Wow.
So it's trending that way, kind of like it or not, and a lot of that is somewhat the shrinking of the standalone Part D marketplace. So there's the two avenues that you have when you have Medicare, and it's original Medicare, and most of those patients will add on a Medicare supplement because original Medicare will pay 80% of hospital or outpatient medical cost, and so a lot of patients will add on a Medicare supplement like a Plan G or et cetera to pick up the 20%, and then also add on a standalone Part D plan, PDP, for the drugs. The other avenue is Medicare Advantage. And so we've seen shrinking of the Part D marketplace, not as many options, and that could be one of the reasons why patients are going away from original Medicare into Medicare Advantage. And so when we're talking about Medicare Advantage, there's a lot of acronyms and topics, and people are concerned about can they see their doctor, and are they going to pay more out of pocket and so forth. Well, just one broad scope item to be aware of is the two types of Medicare Advantage plans. There's PPOs and HMOs. And so they both have their differences. PPO stands for Preferred Provider Organization. And in a PPO, you can go in or out of network. So when people have the concerns about, well, I see, a lot of different doctors. I'm going up to Chapel Hill or Raleigh and Greenville, and they have concerns. With the PPO, there's a layer of flexibility to go in or out of network. If you go out of network, you typically pay more. But the Medicare Advantage plans all have a max out of pocket, so there's always a capped amount that you won't go over in out of pocket costs. So some people like the PPOs. They sometimes have a little higher max out of pockets and maybe sometimes not as robust benefits, but a lot of people like the layer of flexibility there. If they're traveling or something, the PPO might benefit them if they're out of state and need to go somewhere they don't normally go. On the other side is the HMOs. So HMO stands for Health Maintenance Organization. If you have that kind of Medicare Advantage plan, you have to stay in the network. You can't go out of network. So really important to check and make sure all your doctors are in network if you're in that type of plan. And so that's something that we do if we're helping a patient with their Medicare. And usually the HMOs sometimes have a slightly lower max out of pocket and sometimes some maybe lower copays slightly on certain visits, specialist visits, hospital visits. And that's because there's agreed upon rates between the insurance plan and the providers in that network. And so the insurance company knows what their costs are going to be, and versus the PPO going in and out of network, there's different rates that the providers may be billing in or out of network. So a little bit more variability that the insurance company can't really predict as well as the HMO. So that makes sense why HMO sometimes has a little bit lower max out of pocket, sometimes lower copays, because it's more predictable because they know you're only going to be able to go in that network. So if you have a Medicare Advantage, you always want to check and make sure your doctors are in network before you go. One other layer is with PPOs, typically you don't need a referral to go to a specialist. In an HMO, sometimes you do, which is not necessarily a big deal. Usually your primary care provider is referring you anyway.
Right, that's
right.
right.
But if you're wanting to, maybe you don't have a primary care provider and you're trying to go straight to a specialist in an HMO, that could be a barrier. And so, the main thing is with Medicare Advantage, we'll have a lot of patients saying, well, I don't want to do that Advantage stuff. I've read about it on social media and people call it the Medicare disadvantage.
Right.
And so it's really about knowing and understanding how it works. And neither choice is original Medicare versus Medicare Advantage. I would say neither choice is necessarily a wrong choice. It's really individualized and specific to what your needs are. And so there's pros and cons to both. And so when we're giving folks information, we're trying to give them a broad scope of information and let them decide what's best for them. And so we're getting close to that time. December 7th is the last day that you can make a change. And otherwise, you're typically in your same plan. It'll roll right over for 2025 and
what
wait till
happens,
next year.
not to interrupt you,
You're
Thomas,
fine.
but what happens if you do get into March and you say, I really did need to change my plan? Is it possible?
Yeah, so there are a couple of caveats to outside of the regular open enrollment period. And so if you have Medicare Advantage, if you specifically have Medicare Advantage, there is a Medicare Advantage open enrollment period that extends out to March 31st. And so that only applies to people that are in Medicare Advantage as of 1/1/25. And so the reason that exists is if a patient enrolls in a Medicare Advantage plan for the first time or in a new one, and say they have some unforeseen circumstances or barriers or things that they didn't expect, and they're having trouble getting the care that they need, or maybe they find out their doctor's out of network and they didn't know, they have the opportunity to do two options. They can switch Medicare Advantage plans one time. You only get to do this one time during this period. They can switch to a different Medicare Advantage plan, or they can revert back to original Medicare plus a supplement if they had it, and back into a standalone Part D plan. So kind of back into, if they made that change to Medicare Advantage for the first time, it gives them an opportunity to revert back if they're like, hey, I don't like this, it's not working for me.
Right.
We don't see that a ton, but I have seen it. I helped somebody recently with that situation. And even if, so you might be thinking, well, I don't really have anything going on in the first of the year, I might not know yet. If you enroll in a Medicare Advantage plan for the first time, for the very first time in your life as a Medicare beneficiary, you actually have a 12-month trial period on that Medicare Advantage plan. Now you can't just switch middle of the year. You still have that March 31st or waiting till the next fall, but you can revert back to original Medicare plus a Part D plan. And the reason that trial period exists is when you get out of that Medicare supplement, if you wait past that 12-month mark and then you say, I don't like Medicare Advantage, and you need to get back into the supplement, they may put you through underwriting, which is where they they'll take your health into account.
Right.
And versus like a guaranteed issue period, which is what occurs when you first enroll when you turn 65. And so that's something to be aware of. So, but just talk to an expert. And
Absolutely.
talk to somebody that understands Medicare, because even we're talking about it, but it's a lot there, and it's a lot of information, and the rules sometimes change each year.
That's not our forte. And we need to talk to somebody who it is their forte. I'm telling you.
So it's a lot of research that goes into it each year, and trying to understand and help folks. And so we really take pride in our ability to kind of navigate the waters there of Medicare. So talk to an expert, talk to us at the pharmacy. Just a few days left. If you have questions, call, and we've got appointments most of this week, but can probably squeeze a few folks in if anybody has any pressing needs. But we're excited to see how many folks we've helped, and we're hoping to have a good 2025 and expecting to see some benefits to patients on the prescription drug costs, especially. I'm seeing for a lot of patients in certain plans, the costs are going down because of the new rules with no donut hole. So that's good to see.
Let me make one thing. Let's make one point. I always like to make sure if somebody has asked me a question that I'll get you to respond to it. I saw a lady in the post office, you're probably watching, and so they asked me if they are does the cap on insulin just apply to Medicare only?
So that, and we're talking about, there's a $35 cap on insulin through Medicare per 30-day supply. So you could pay $70 or $105 if your one box of insulin lasts you longer.
Right.
So it's not just always going to be $35, but it's $35 per 30-day supply. Deductible doesn't apply or anything like that, but that is specific to Medicare.
Okay.
So that's legislation passed that rule took effect a couple of years ago, but just for Medicare. So not necessarily for commercial plans or employer-based plans or Affordable Care Act, marketplace plans. It's some of those plans might have their own individual caps, but this rule is just for Medicare. And the neat thing about the Medicare rule is the deductible does not apply. It's still $35. And so most of the drug plans and the standalone drug plans and the Advantage plans, most of them this year have a deductible. And on the Part D plans, it's upwards of $590. And so if you didn't have that cap, you go get that insulin the first time, it could be $500 plus.
Right.
But it should only be $35 per 30-day supply. And that day supply is calculated based off of how many units you take. So if you only take 10 units and you're getting a box 15 mLs, that's going to last you 150 days. So, but yeah, good question.
Okay. Well, we hope that answered your question. And if you do have questions, call the station. Let us know. Email me, Sandra at WHIGTV. You can email Thomas, the pharmacy, I think. Can they email the pharmacy?
They can go through our website and reach out to us or give us a call. Or
there's the number right there. Give them a call. Call them because they know I don't, but I can ask.
We're glad to help.
Yes, absolutely. Well, Thomas, we're so glad you're with us again today. And don't forget, y'all, the 7th is upon us. So they do have a few slots left, so don't let somebody take your slot. Give them a call, 443-7979, and get in and make sure you have all the information you need to make an informed decision.
That's right.
About your insurance plan.
That's right.
So, anyway, thank you, Thomas.
Thanks, Sandra.
And we'll see you back in 2 weeks. So, anyway, and I'll be back right after this.